Joins us in the studio. Good evening, Mr. Wenda, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, Philippe Khama has been released. Where to from now?
Yes, Philippe Khama released 5 days ago, and after he's come out and he said he's continued to fight for liberate his people. That's his commitment from the beginning. So that's why, yeah, he's already committed.
Now, what's the reason for your visit to South Africa now?
My visit to South Africa, 6 months ago, early this year, I was visited, and I was welcomed by all South African people. So after that, I went back to UK and then traveled to the Pacific, and I brought the good message to people of West Papua and also across the Pacific, and they gained confidence. That's why South Africa is very important for me to come back, because they also 21 years ago, they fight for the anti-apartheid movement. That's a very good spirit to seeking help and come back to South Africa.
You mentioned that it's been 5 days since Philippe Khama's release. Have you been able to sit down with him and have a chat with him with regards to what you're doing and working together?
In fact, at my visit, they follow everything, and then last 2 days ago in the night, I already make phone call, and then he said this is give inspiration, and I spoke with him, and then he said we will continue to fight, and so he's really committed. Yeah.
You met with Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu. How was your meeting?
Yes, after I came here last few months ago, and then he blessed, and then that blessed because he's called Renew UN Review campaign. He called 2004, and then he renewed his call for UN Review campaign. So then after I came back, and he blessed, and today after I met, and he said, your fight is my prayer. So that's meant to us for West Papuan and myself. So yeah, that's why.
Earlier you mentioned the fact that you have been in South Africa, you had been in South Africa about 6 months ago, and you took home the message that, the people of Papua have support, and the struggle continues. Now, what has been, have you had any assistance from South Africa, one, and two, from the United Nations?
Yes, when I went back to Pacific and also brought the message, people again confident. Last 50 years, nobody heard their voice. So when I came here, and then that's also give confidence. And I meeting with few leaders and also some local people and NGO, and also some other lawyers, and there is a lot of advice, and that gives confidence. But this moment for the United Nations level, because UN directly to involve what happened in 1969, so-called referendum, but we call, West Papua call it act of no choice. So UN level is not really looking at that issue, but regionally there is a few countries regionally, Vanuatu, Solomon Island, Tonga. They raised the issue last month in the UN, so that's they already knows that something will happen, and that's why I'm coming back to South Africa to seeking support. EU level, African Union level. That's because that's very important for me.
Now, you mentioned regionally you are getting a bit of support from there, but what about the rest of the world? Globally, is there anyone coming out, any of the big powers coming out in support of Papua?
Big power like Britain, the US, and is indirectly already involved for violated our right to self-determination. They're a little bit ignorant, but people are finding out. That's why in the region, for example, in the Pacific, like Australia, in New Zealand, ordinary people are more support, and that's why this issue never go away, because this is unbusiness finished by United Nations, and the UN respect the international law, but they break their own rule. So hopefully the country will find out and bring this issue back to the United Nations.
Now, Mr. Wenda, let's talk about the issue of regional countries that are so far on your side, as on the side of Indonesia rather. Do they still argue that you belong to Indonesia. What's the situation and what's the stance there?
There is almost now across the Pacific made up of the Micronesia, Polynesia, Melanesia, and that Melanesia finding out this is their own brother treated differently because of Indonesia rule in West Papua 54 years. They don't know what's going on, what's happening, because we are different colony. But now they're finding out, and ordinary people are really supportive, and government cannot escape because the people power pushing. So even there's international level, Indonesia trying to lobby, they don't have any argument to hold on West Papua, but now trying to lobby different way. But under international law, we are a strong case, so we're really confident.
When you say they're trying to lobby in different ways, what sort of ways are they trying to use?
They already lost a legal argument and political argument. They're only using economy, diplomacy. That's what they're doing. That's the last weapon they got. But the law is our side, so no one denied. That's why we really give us confidence. And that's why all the rest of the world are finding out what happened, 1969 so-called referendum. And this is why Indonesia really trying to stop it. For example, my movement around the world, and even they're trying to ban me, but it's something that I believe that every human being should be free, and that's why it's one day will happen.
Now, how serious are human rights abuses as we speak in Papua?
As we speak, it still continue to killing. Since 1963, Indonesia invaded West Papua. 500,000 women and men and children has been killed until today. The Indonesia get away, able to ban the journalists, all the media, Amnesty International, Red Cross, totally banned. Recently, last Monday, allowed, but this on the paper, but close off, and human rights violation is still continue. There is 2 months ago, two young boy were killed and unarmed. Just they're walking on the street. This is happening right now.
But how, can you just tell us, how has Indonesia managed to sort of close off Papua from the rest of the world? What has been happening?
Yeah, this is Indonesia. The other hand, they so-called they're trying to promote democracy, but I think the rest of other islands, yes, of course, they promote democracy. West Papua is they look at West Papua as a colony. So they look at that treated West Papua differently because geographically, culturally, identically, also West Papua are very different color. That's why they treat differently. That's why 20 years time my people will wipe out. That's why before that. I don't want to repeat that history like what happened Aboriginal Australia, what is the American Indian, what happening. That's why this is the international issue. It's not a regional issue anymore. This is not Indonesia internal issue anymore. This is international involved. It should be facilitated by international. That's my campaign.
Now, Mr. Wenda, before we close off, you mentioned there just a few minutes ago that 2 young boys about 2 months ago were killed on the street, and it was just a random thing. The impression is that this is a regular occurrence and nothing is being done about it. What's the situation there? Indonesia
get away with impunity. 8th of December last year, 4 boys were killed. High school students were killed too in Nabire, and Indonesia always get away with impunity. And this is that's why they close over media, and they don't want international communities to know and finding out about West Papua.
Mr. Wenda, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.